one thing we can say about the Rangers is that they are consistently inconsistent. In the 2 games set against the Bruins, they lose 4-0, and then they win 4-0. I think that this is something that we've seen a lot this year. It's been more bad than good, but it is frustrating when you know that they're capable of playing well. This is not, clearly like an Ottawa Senators or Detroit Red Wings or anything like that. And admittedly, they really, in this division, should not be a playoff team, and they likely won't be. But they're certainly not far off. And in this second game is kind of why you see that. Let's get into this. Back-to-back set in Boston, coming off of 2 tough losses at Pittsburgh. So, Georgiev gets the start in the first game. Shesterkin still is out day-to-day. Sounds like a lingering issue, and I'm not surprised he's still out, especially the way that the injury looked. But with Shesterkin, it seems like he could be back for the back-to-back games against the Flyers this coming week, or it could be later than that. We really don't know. But in the meantime, they go back to Georgiev, and I personally, for the first game, would have started Kincaid. That would have been my preference, Kincaid just playing better than Georgiev, flat out. Halak would be in goal for Boston for both games. Rask is hurt, and Halak has always been a Ranger killer, forever. This would basically just be, for the whole game, domination in favor of Boston. And it started early. David Pastrnak would score, and not a great goal by Georgiev. Kind of long range. Maybe there was a screen, but it wasn't deflected, and Pastrnak scores. Then later in the period, the power play struggles continue, and it's back-to-back games where they give up a shorthanded goal. An amazing play by Brad Marchand, who sets up Bergeron and scores. So, you get that same old problems. The late period goals, poor power play, and giving up a shorthanded goal. So they're down 2-0, and then they would give up a couple of more goals. A power play goal for Krejci in the second, as well as DeBrus making it 4-0. Georgiev's out. And a couple of bad goals by Georgiev within that. But a whole team issue. So Georgiev really has struggled. Kincaid would come in and wouldn't be completely tested a whole lot, but made all the saves. Not much to speak of for the rest of the game, but, and another shutout for Yaroslav Halak. So that's twice that Halak has shut the Rangers out this season, continuing his mastery against them. And so, again, at this point, the Rangers, I don't know if I'd call it rock bottom, but just really not playing well. But what they did learn, and again, I can't say enough how poor of a game that was and how problematic that is, but Panarin was back in Boston, so it was known that he was likely going to come back soon, and the expectation was that he was going to return for the second game, which he did. He would return for the second game. So the Rangers would make some interesting lineup changes. So they had basically one extra forward, and I should also mention that Jack Johnson did not play either of these 2 games. He's healthy, but he's still kind of banged up, and it just makes sense at this point that he wouldn't play. So that had a situation where it's Lindgren Fox, Miller Trouba, and Hayek Smith, which is what I'd expect to see for the foreseeable future, and it makes sense. And it's funny, because Johnson was actually coming off scoring a goal against Pittsburgh that second game, but he, was a healthy scratch, but Quinn had alluded to the fact that he's still, working through injury. Doesn't matter. So, but on the forward situation, it was kind of a rotation for the healthy scratch. And for the first game, it was Di Giuseppe that had been a healthy scratch after Lemieux was for the second game against Pittsburgh. So now in the second game against Boston, you got to scratch 2. And one of them I totally agreed with, and the other one not so much. And I guess we'll talk about the one that I don't agree with first. Julien Gauthier, I thought, had been playing some pretty good hockey, but he was the healthy scratch. And it just seems like Quinn just doesn't fully trust him, and it's too bad. And I understand the fact that Panarin coming back, now you have 3 lines that certainly have a lot of offense to them. And then you just have like a fourth line that needs to, I guess, be a little more defensive minded. And Gauthier, I guess if he's not going to be in the top three lines, him playing on the fourth is, I don't want to say pointless, but doesn't quite fit that role as much. I personally would prefer Lemieux to be the one that sits there. I just don't like his game. I understand he adds an element that is unique from the rest of the team. He's a bit of an agitator. I'm just not a fan of what I'm seeing from him. And as much as I like Di Giuseppe, I'd be fine if you scratched him as well. I'd just like to give Gauthier a look. But the better news is that Brett Howden was finally a healthy scratch. And I've been asking for this one as well. Because now Hedl was playing full-time center on the third line. And so Kevin Rooney then slots down to the fourth line center. And Rooney's been better. Rooney has been better than Howden. So Howden finally, for the first time this year, is a healthy scratch. And it was fine. It was totally fine in terms of what happened in this game. I would expect for the next game, you'll likely see the same situation. I think because they played so well, Howden and Gauthier are probably out, but good to see that, one of the moves was one in which I agreed with. So this was completely different this game. So Kincaid starts this game, and he was not tested at all. Kincaid, I'll just cut right to it. Kincaid gets a shutout. Believe Boston had 18 or so shots. It was 16 or 18. And Kincaid wasn't tested, but he makes all the saves. And I think that you need to consider when Igor returns that Kincaid is the one that backs him up. Again, I mean, there's a lot to kind of go into that. But again, Georgiev, he had the shutout against the Islanders in his first game of the year. And ever since then, it's been mostly bad. He really has struggled this year. And Shesterkin clearly is the number one. So, but just from the outset, the Rangers completely took it to Boston. Boston just didn't seem interested today. They really did not. And you could tell immediately. And in the first period, K'Andre Miller would score, assisted by Buchnevich and Zibanejad. So they would put the Kreider, Zibanejad, Buchnevich line back together. It was very good. They would have Panarin back with Strome and Blackwell as well. And I could see that rotating, but they did put Panarin back with Strome. There was some question as to maybe they wouldn't do that, but they did. And then it was a kid line of Lafreniere, Hedl, and Kakko. So very intriguing offensively. Defensively, could be a bit problematic, but I will say all three of them have been fairly responsible. Obviously, you're not going to trust them to kill penalties or anything like that, but they were fine. And so the Rangers make it 1-0. Halak made a ton of great saves. It could have been more than that. And the Rangers would score another goal. It would be in the second, Kreider would score. And that's 14th goal of the season for Kreider. So, continues his goal-scoring ways, which is good to see. And the Rangers would be up 2-0 end of 2. And it really could have been more than that. I mean, honestly, Halak played very well, and Boston just really was disinterested. And the Rangers just absolutely outworked them. And then in the third, Rangers would score 2 goals. A beautiful pass by Panarin to Strome. So Strome scores. And Panarin, I felt like, it wasn't normal Panarin. He had missed, I believe, 9 games, but a beautiful cross-ice pass to Strome was wide open, who buries it. And then Buchnevich would score the 4th goal. And Buchnevich has really had a very good season. He's taken his game to another level. He has slowly progressed. It's taken a while. But I think this is the best hockey that we've seen Buch play since, he started out in the 2016-2017 season. So that's another good thing to see. And, I think, what comes to mind, I think Miller and Trouba were good today. Miller scoring a goal, Trouba had an assist, and I think Trouba's offensive skills have really gotten worse. Very much so. Since he's become a Ranger, and even just from the beginning of last year to now, it's definitely progressively gotten worse. But he does give you that snarl. He does, he's not afraid to take the body, to block a shot. He does give you that. He is definitely good in that aspect of the game. And again, it's just completely inconsistent. And it's what we also saw in the last Boston back-to-back, where those games were played at the Garden. The first game, the Rangers won 6-2, and then they lost. It was 3-1. I think Boston might have had an empty netter. It might have been 4, but either way, it was a situation where Rangers crushed them and then Boston gave it right back to them. That happened here. So, yeah, again, you don't know what team you're going to get from game to game, even within a game. You might get, it's just, but this was a total 60-minute effort. And now they are getting basically back to full strength, except for Igor in goal. So you're basically close to the full product that you'd be hoping for. What I would expect the rest of the way is the Rangers are going to win some games, they're going to lose some games. They could really, and it's been the case, they have, in this division, they've beaten everyone and they've lost to everyone. So that's just kind of how it's going to be. They'll win a couple, lose a couple. And I think that they're probably going to hover, around 500 would be my guess. But we'll see. They finished off that 6-game road trip and now they're headed home for a couple of games. The Flyers, who, as it stands right now, they have a game tonight against the Caps, but the Flyers are definitely struggling. The Flyers have found themselves out of, again, there's a lot to go, a little more than half the season to go, but the Flyers are now in 5th place. So you'd expect them to get it back going. And so these will be a couple of interesting games, and we'll see how the Rangers do and if they can build off this game. I have my doubts, but if they can play any way like they did today, they'll be winning a lot more games. So we'll see what this week has in store. A couple against the Flyers. Then they go to Washington for 2. And yeah, we're basically almost at the halfway point. So I'll talk to you guys soon.